And welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here this evening for such an informative learning lab. For any new folks in the room, my name is Sarah. I'm one of Interfaith Partners for the Chesapeake Senior Coordinators. And before we get started, we'd like to go over a brief tech orientation that you're going to see here on the next slide as we start tonight's learning lab, Empowered by Faith, Building a Just and Sustainable Energy Future. And before we jump into our tech orientation, perfect. We're just going to ask that everyone stays muted during this presentation, please. If you need to get up and move around, we also ask that you turn off your camera. Again, this session is being recorded, so if you don't want to be shown during this webinar, simply turn your camera off now. And last, there's a chat function at the bottom as a way to ask for help should you need assistance. One of our IPC staff here, Rebecca or myself or another, will be on their best to do everything we can to assist you. We'll have some Q&A at the end, so we'll ask that you either put your questions in the chat while we're having the presentations, or you can unmute at the end of the program and we'll let you know. Next, you're going to see a lovely staff photo from our 15th anniversary dinner. It was such a blessing to be there. We thank everyone who came out, and we hope that we'll see you at our 2026 Chesapeake Lands and Waters Interfaith Summit, which will be hosted in Gaithersburg on Saturday, April 18th. So save the date, more details to come. And if you find yourself in my area and you want to connect, you can see my contact information there. Oh, perfect. Nope, that was perfect. Sorry, I'm a little bit slow this evening. So we have this program lineup that Rebecca was showing wonderfully. Thank you so much. It's just a quick lineup of what we're going to be doing tonight. As you can see, we're going to get a chance to meet our speakers, hear the presentations. We'll open with a prayer, and we will also have some Q&A at the end and close with a reflection. So now we will start our program, and I found this really beautiful Sikh prayer to remind us of the interconnectedness web of life. And so we'll ground tonight's program with the world, like all creation, is a manifestation of God. Every creature in this world, every plant, every form is a manifestation of the Creator. Each is part of God, and God is within each element of creation. God is the cause of all and the primary connection between all existences. The Creator created himself and created all creation in which he is manifest. You yourself, the bumblebee, flower, fruit, and the tree. You yourself, the water, desert, ocean, and the pond. You yourself, the big fish, tortoise, and the cause of causes. Your form cannot be known. And so thank you so much for taking that moment with me. Now we're going to shift gears and just share a little bit of our gratitude for the sponsors that fund our work and make this possible, as you can see here on this slide. Next, you're just going to see a lovely illustration of IPC. As you know, we love to represent and show ourselves as the connector organization, as you can see here. It's a great analogy. We're like a puzzle, and so we kind of fit in with all these different pieces. We help congregations pursue environmental stewardship projects with our partners, whether they be tech partners or local governments. And if you see on the next slide, we want to pause and let folks know a little bit about our beloved bay. It's just a good moment to remind us that we're all in the same bathtub, so to speak. So I'm really intrigued to find out sometimes people, even within our own watershed, might not know that they're a part of a watershed. So it's the largest estuary in our country and the third largest in the world. And all of our backyards are connected. So what happens on your street or flows downstream, it affects us all, and simple changes can make incredible positive impacts to the bay's restoration and water quality, which is so desperately needed now. So we all need to do our part. And if you want to find out more about who's already partnering with us and doing some of this work, you can learn more about our One Water partnership and sign our pledge on the next slide right here. This is a really great map that kind of shows all the congregations that have signed and started the work with us. There's a link in the chat to learn more. Next, We just want to make mention for any green teams out there, we have our Faithful Green Leaders training starting next week. So if you are interested, please scan that QR code or just join on our event page. And last but not least, if you're looking for a place to start and don't know where, we have a great resource page. There's congregational action kits, liturgical resources, and free trees. And so we'll follow up with some more of those links in the chat here in just a moment. But we want to delve right into tonight's discussion. So, the topic of tonight's webinar, Empowered by Faith, Building a Just and Sustainable Energy Future. It's a topic that becomes more interesting with every year as technology advances, and the need for equitable energy across our region still remains a challenge for some. So, we're very fortunate to have a couple experts in the room with us this evening, starting with Maddie Smith. This is a very near and dear organization to us. We love working with Interfaith Power and Light. They are the clean energy shepherd supporting the region's houses of worship to go solar, which is so good for our planet and pocket. So we're going to give the floor open and highlight Maddie, and they're going to let us know about some amazing programs and how congregations can get involved. Thanks so much, Matt.
Hi, everyone. It's good to be here with you all. Can I get a quick show of hands of who here is from Maryland or DC? So lots of Marylanders. And then there are folks from Pennsylvania and Delaware too, right? Can I see those folks? We've got a few of them. Okay, good to see you all. Is there anybody from Virginia on today? Doesn't look like it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and share some slides. It's really good to be here with you all today. Like Sarah said, I'm Maddie Smith. My pronouns are they, them, and I am with Interfaith Power and Light. We are one of 40 different state affiliates throughout the country of Interfaith Power and Light, and we kind of do the climate side of what IPC does with the water side of things. So climate and energy are our focus. And my role as Clean Energy Shepherd, which I think is like the coolest job title ever, it's pretty hard to beat, is to really help assist houses of worship in doing these projects that involve solar or energy efficiency, electrification. I'm really excited that Tiffany and the folks from St. Bartholomew's are here too to share today. I know both of them well, and it's just a great group of folks we've got here today. So this is a map on our website of every congregation that's gone solar that we know of in the DC, Maryland, Northern Virginia areas, which is the primary areas that we work in. The DC is small and covered in lots of blue points, as you can probably guess, but we have quite a few folks in Maryland that have done this as well. And here's just a few photos I wanted to share because solar pictures are so pretty and I think help us envision like what could that look like on your house of worship. So this is Florida Avenue Baptist Church in DC, one of the first churches in DC that went solar, right by Howard University. Here's a more recent photo from Beth Shalom in Frederick. They're a synagogue that just went solar this past year, and we've learned a lot from them about the tax credit and how to do that. Here is Emmanuel Church on the Hill, an Episcopal church in Alexandria, and at their solar blessing, they threw holy water onto the solar panels, which I think is just really awesome. This is Maryland Buddhist Vihara in Silver Spring, so it's not just the Abrahamic congregations from the Abrahamic traditions that are doing this. There's folks from all different faith traditions that are really prioritizing this as both a way to care for the planet, care for our common home, as well as save money. You can save a lot of money and even get some income for your congregation from going solar. Just a couple more photos. This is St. Peter's in Poolsville, a project that was funded by the Montgomery County Green Bank. If you're in Montgomery County, it's extremely easy to get good financing from the Green Bank to do your solar projects there. And then finally, this is Covenant Baptist UCC in DC. So basically, what I wanted to start off with is, how do our houses of worship go solar? And there's a couple different ways, and those ways, not all of the ways involve having a big pile of money to spend up front. There's really lots of ways that you could do solar, several ways, and then I'm also going to talk briefly about what do you do if you don't have a great roof for solar. So I always tell people, if you can own your solar on your congregation, that's the best option and involves you being able to benefit the most from it. However, we know that solar can be expensive and that is not always the best path forward for folks. And so I'm also going to talk about an option called a power purchase agreement, or a PPA. But if you own the panels, that means you have to pay for them. There's a large upfront cost. You could finance that with a cash purchase or a loan. And I know sometimes houses of worship can get nervous about taking on debt. And so that's something we could definitely talk through together about how to make that happen. Like I said, there's access to financing, different avenues of financing available for these projects, and it's a little different depending on where you live. So I'd love to talk personally with anyone that is interested in doing this. One thing that's changed in the last couple of years is that houses of worship and nonprofits can now benefit from the tax credit. There's a 30% federal tax credit on commercial solar projects right now. And houses of worship can monetize that tax credit even though you don't pay taxes to the federal government. So there's a process that you go through with the IRS to be able to do that. And it's a little bit complicated, as you might imagine, for an entity who doesn't pay taxes to get a tax rebate from the IRS, but it is possible. There are people that have done it, like Congregation Beth Shalom that I showed. And while the caveat here is that I can't give professional tax advice, I will say that we have learned a lot from the folks that were the guinea pigs that have done this. There's a handful of houses of worship in Maryland that have already gone solar and gotten the 30 or 40% tax credit back. And that tax credit is really important for making these projects possible. And you don't get that tax credit back immediately. You get it, you'll file your 990 or your taxes about the tax year after your project goes into service. So if your project went into service in 2026, and you own it, you would apply to the IRS in 2027, and then they would process your tax return then. And I'm sure that people have lots of questions about that, and I'm always happy to be asked questions about that later on. So the other option that doesn't involve having a lot of money or taking out a loan to pay for a solar project is a power purchase agreement. And this is where the congregation will have a company pay. The company will pay and own the solar panels that they will put up on your roof, and then they will sell you the power that those panels produce at a cheaper rate than what you would have been paying your electric utility. And I will say that this is not an option that's available to everyone in every state. I can say pretty confidently that if you're in DC or Maryland, I can probably find somebody that will give you a power purchase agreement proposal. But for the other states, for Virginia, it's a little difficult just because of the way solar is not as incentivized in that state. And I can't really speak to Delaware or Pennsylvania. So again, I always tell people the way to maximize your benefits is to own your solar, but if that's not possible, then the power purchase agreement is a great option. It allows you to save, it allows more solar to be put into the world and on your roof, and that can be just a great option for folks. There's a lot of congregations in the region that have done both of these options and been very happy with them. So this is probably the question that everyone is hoping to get answered tonight, and that's how is the current federal landscape being affected by, how is that affecting what we can do right now? And the question is, the answer is, if you are thinking about solar at your congregation, right now is the time to be doing that and to be moving forward. There's never been a better time, and in fact, we're kind of on a timeline. So the big ugly bill, as I call it, last summer made it so that the tax credit is being phased out for commercial and residential solar projects. In fact, it's already gone away for residential solar projects. So if you wanted to put solar on your home and file that in your individual taxes, you can no longer receive the tax credit for that. But we have this window of opportunity because projects on houses of worship are commercial solar projects, and we have a little bit more time before the tax credit runs out for commercial solar projects. So, and we know that this 30 or 40% tax credit is really important for houses of worship to be able to do these projects. And that, without the tax credit, it's really difficult to do these projects. So to receive the federal tax credit, commercial solar projects must either begin physical construction or have 5% of the total project cost paid for by July 4th, 2026. So that's only a few months away. We've got some time. And so if your congregation is seriously thinking about this or wanting to explore it, I really urge you to get in touch with me right away, and we can work on this together, because I know through experience that it takes a while to develop these projects at houses of worship and to get all of the approval that you need. And so really right now is the time to start thinking about this in your congregation. The good thing is that we have this window where you can put 5% of the project cost down. And what that means is that you don't have to start physical construction on your project. You just have to have spent 5% of the project budget. And that does what's called safe harboring the project for the tax credit. So even if you can't start physical construction by July 4th, which at this point, many solar companies and installers have their calendars already booked out through a lot of the year, this would allow you to still be able to receive the tax credit and start construction later. The other piece of this is that if you don't meet the July 4th deadline for either putting 5% of the money down or starting construction, is that you can still receive the tax credit if you place your project into service by December 31st, 2027. And I will say that makes people nervous because it relies on the utilities to interconnect your project and to give you permission to turn it on. When you go solar, you'll have the solar panels just sitting there on your roof for several months before the utility will actually give you permission to turn them on. And you have to have everything inspected, and the utilities are not incentivized to do that quickly because they would prefer that you keep buying all of your kilowatt hours from them instead of producing them yourself. So if you can't meet this July 4th deadline, there's still a possibility for you to get the tax credit, but you just have to make sure you move extremely quickly because you won't be able to rely on your utility to meet that deadline necessarily, if that makes sense. So all of that to say, there's been no better time to try to do this right now. So could your congregation go solar? I would say let's talk about it. A lot depends on where you're located, what state or county you're in, depending on what's available. There are some grant programs available in Maryland that I know of. The money ran out super fast this year, and it depends on where you're located, if you're eligible or not. But that's kind of what my job is to meet with congregations one-on-one, walk you through the process, talk to you about your specific project, connect you to solar developers that can help you, and then also let you know about any funding sources that I find out about. So are you a good fit for solar? Some of that can depend on what your roof is made of and how old it is, whether you would need to replace your roof before going solar, the way your roof is oriented. Obviously south-facing roofs that have solar on them will produce much more than any other part-facing roof that has solar on it. And then also kind of depending on how much solar can we fit on your roof and how does that relate to what your energy usage is. I will say that I talk to very few people that just aren't a good fit for solar at all. So I'd say even if you have a little inkling of, we're not sure if this would work, or we feel nervous about our roof, like, let's talk about it, because there's some pretty common misconceptions about, we can't do solar on a slate roof. Like, that's not really true anymore. And so I would love to talk to you about your congregation and your roof and your project. I will say that there are some decent options. If you can't go solar at all, you could sign up for what's called community solar. And I can put a link in the chat to that after I stop sharing my slides. And that's where you can subscribe to solar panels that are located elsewhere off-site. And I will say those lists fill up pretty quickly, but I think there's some opening in some different utility territories in Maryland right now. And of course, I think community solar is new in Delaware. It's not legal in Pennsylvania, I know, unfortunately. And so, please get in touch with me. That's what I want to offer to you all. I'm here to help you through your solar project. That's basically my whole job. As you can imagine, we're very busy right now with all of the congregations that are trying to do this, so you'd be in very, very good company. And so how can you get solar proposals for your congregation? Let's get in touch with me. The most important things that I would need would be 12 months of your energy bills and information about your roof, and of course your address, so we could look at it together. And I think that's everything I have for today. Sarah's gonna put some links in the chat, and I will do that as well.
Thanks so much, Maddie. That was a lot of information in a short amount of time. So I know that folks will want to reach out. I'm actually going to put your information again. We're going to put a link to IPL and then to Maddie's schedule. So if you do want to connect, just click the link for the calendar and they'll get back to you as soon as they can. And I will say that Maddie is very busy. So, yes, their schedule fills up quickly. So if you're interested, click on the link and we're going to share this again in the post program email blast. So everyone will have a chance to connect and inquire about the information. Thanks so much. There were a couple questions, Maddie, but as we talked at the, if you don't mind hanging out, we're going to have some time at the end. I definitely want to welcome our next keynote speaker. We're very fortunate to have Tiffany Lawson with us this evening. She brings a wealth of expertise in community development and engagement as the Director of Community Engagement at Groundswell. So her commitment to fostering safe and equitable spaces for socioeconomically disadvantaged youth and communities makes her the perfect person to talk about an amazing opportunity tonight for congregations to become resiliency hubs. This is something that we've touched on in the previous year. It's a really amazing way that congregations can just act more fully as trusted community serving facilities, in part by becoming energy efficient. So it kind of allows buildings to operate independently from the grid during outages, things like that. Energy is a big part of this. And so very fascinating things to discuss. I won't waste any more time. I want to open up the floor and spotlight Tiffany so we can welcome her and have her talk more about this amazing program and how congregations have been already partaking in it. And I'm sorry, Tiffany, I
No worries.
can't find you. We have quite a large gathering here tonight, which is wonderful. I'm just searching you before we started so I can get the spotlight on you.
Okay.
I hear you, and let's. Perfect.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks so much, Sarah. Good evening, everyone. And a special thank you to Sarah and the Interfaith Partners for the Chesapeake for inviting me to share this great opportunity that we have with everyone. As she mentioned, I'm the Director of Community Engagement at Groundswell, and I'd like to talk to you more about tonight about starting your journey in community resilience. Next slide, please. So it's no secret that across the county and including Maryland, we're seeing more frequent power disruptions and rising energy costs. And when those disruptions happens, communities need to have trusted places where residents can go for reliable support. And the question often becomes, where do people go when the lights go out? And more importantly, what do they do when the lights go out? And that's where resilience hubs come into play. Next slide. Groundswell works with communities across the across the country, including 5 states. That's where our footprint extends to lower energy costs and build long-term resilience. A majority of our work, although it is across our 5 state footprint, it is extensively in Maryland. Maryland is where we started. Maryland was once my own territory when I worked in that role for Maryland, so I feel a special place for Maryland. Sorry, Pennsylvania and Delaware, we're not in your states yet, but we're coming. With that in mind, Groundswell partners with communities to create community resilience hubs with solar and storage systems, helping local communities providing reliable power during outages. Next slide. And through funding that we've received from Maryland Energy Administration, Groundswell is able to offer organizations across these counties that are listed on this screen the opportunity at becoming a resilience hub through a no cost, no obligation feasibility study. So this speaks to what Maddie shared earlier about those first steps in becoming knowing whether your roof is feasible, knowing whether the building is feasible. This opportunity allows us to come out and conduct that feasibility study for you at no cost and no obligation so you can continue your journey into resilience. Next slide. So, what is a resilience hub? If you don't know, resilience hubs is simply a trusted community facing a community facility equipped with solar power and battery storage, so it can remain operational during outages and provide support to the surrounding communities. Our resilience work revolves around community resilience hubs at Groundswell. And these are community resilience hubs equipping local communities with solar energy and backup energy storage, ensuring critical services such as powering medical devices, enabling emergency communications, and phone charging to remain readily available during power outages. In addition to supporting immediate emergency response, community resilience hubs provide lasting value to site hosts by delivering electricity bill savings through on-site energy generation, helping to fund job training, bill savings, food distribution, and youth programs, and so much, much more. Next slide. For many organizations, becoming a resilience hub just means being able to continue to serve your community when it needs it the most. That's it. We're not going to go any more specific into it. You can be a resilience hub by just offering that basic level of care to your community. During an outage, this could mean providing a safe place for residents to charge your phones, store refrigerated medicines, stay connected to power dependent life saving devices, access information, or simply have a place to gather. Next slide. Okay, so I don't have my partner in crime, Ken, with me tonight. He's the technical guy, and I'm not going to get too technical tonight. But if you look here on this info graphic here, solar and battery storage creates a microgrid that allows critical services to continue during outages, as shown by this infographic on the screen. The solar energy is collected by the solar panel on the roof or the ground mount and is stored in the battery located on that site. When an outage occurs, the stored solar energy that's in the battery activates and it powers the designated load. A few things to note. The battery is not meant to cover electricity for the entire building, as this is only a temporary means of a solution. And it is not meant to be a permanent solution for a loss of power over 48 hours. So anything longer than that is definitely needs to be resolved by the local utility partner. So that's not me being technical, but you should understand how Resilience Hub does work. Next slide. A key part of our process is working directly with community members to identify priorities, services, and needs that the Resilience Hub should support. Each hub is co-designed with the community through a deep engagement process that ensures alignment with existing priorities, and it encourages community ownership and leverages data to improve energy resilience. So the work that we do is not only helping you get the battery, the solar panel, and the storage, but also working you through a process of how you can make your community more resilient by involving the community into the resilient process and having that engagement that's needed for individuals to just say, okay, yes, I want to become a resilience hub. How do I get started? This is the feedback we'll give you in working with the community, working with the community to become more resilient. Next slide. So the grant that I spoke about earlier is our Resilient Maryland grant. Like I said, it was funded by Maryland Energy Administration. And if your organization is interested in exploring whether your facility could serve as a resilience hub, the first step is simply completing the interest form. And you can do that by scanning the QR code on your screen. I know Sarah has sent out a link in the advertisement for this actual meeting tonight, which we've had a couple people already do the interest link. So thank you very much. Also, you can scan that QR code there. It'll take you directly to the interest form link. Also, if you like to set up more time with me and we can do a one-on-one discussion, you can reach out to resilientcommunities@groundswell.org. And or if you just want to learn a little bit more about it before you even do that, go to that link at groundswell.org/resilient-Maryland. And that's the landing page, and it gives you a little bit more information about what we do. At the same time, you have the opportunity to see the other projects that we're working on at Groundswell. And just if you'd like to learn more about this opportunity, just go to the landing page or reach out to me. If you want to schedule a time to talk in greater detail, please do. I'm always open for those conversations. I love those conversations because it's really helping us get Maryland to become more resilient. And then with the last slide, next slide, it's just my contact information here. If you have any additional questions, again, like I mentioned earlier, if you want to just sit down and chat about this, talk about the opportunity, I'm here. This is the contact information. So my presentation was short and sweet, but I did want to bring this opportunity to everyone in Maryland because we've done it for a few years now with MEA. A lot of things that Maddie shared about funding opportunities, yes, and we've actually worked projects from a feasibility study all the way to actually opening up. We have 3 sites right now in Baltimore who just got connected, as I learned of this week, and we are waiting for the commission to give us the okay on the inspection and turn us on. So we've done this for a while. You'll have the opportunity if you go to our website to see more sites that we've done this with, and we were able to walk them through with our leverage with MEA from this free feasibility study all the way to construction with obtaining grants along the way to help their organizations go through this process. So that's it for me.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. We do have some questions, so we are going to get to those at the end of the program. We have one more guest speaker with us, but let me just put this in the chat again. And this is a way to get involved and to contact Tiffany to learn more about the program and the interest form, which again we will share in the post-recording program email. But this is if you're interested, and I feel like there are a lot of congregations and folks that weren't able to join when we send it out that are just going to be very interested in this program. It's becoming a very just timely topic,
Mhm.
even as I've experienced in more power outages this past winter, which is scary. So it's just lovely that you have an organization like yourself kind of offering like a stopgap in between those emergency situations. And I know a lot of our congregations want to be that hub, that place for the community to just rely on in times like these. So thanks so much, Tiffany. We'll get to some of those
Absolutely.
questions in the chat. Please keep them coming. But we have one last guest speaker of tonight. It's hard to believe that we're like halfway through the program. There's been so much to talk about. The last speaker we have, there's an amazing project that's still in the works. They received over six figures in grant funds to replace their oil-fired boiler at St. Bartholomew's Episcopal Church, which, when fully operational, will eliminate all greenhouse gas emissions. It's simply stupendous. I'm looking, if you can, just go ahead and unmute yourself. Brian and Dave, again, it's a large room. I'm so happy that we have so many friends here this evening, but I'm looking for you to spotlight before we get started. I think I found you, Brian. Dave, I will get to you in just a second. I think Brian's going to start us off. Dave is fortunately an engineer, so he's going to talk more about the technical side of this. But yeah, I don't want to waste any more time. Please, everyone, welcome some of our friends from the Green Team at St. Bartholomew's Episcopal Church in Baltimore City County, Maryland.
Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate that. Can you hear me?
You sound great.
Okay, very good. Next slide, please. So I'm Brian McKay from St. Bartholomew's Episcopal Church in Baltimore City, and my cohort in crime is Dave Murray, and he will pitch in from time to time. We're here to talk about our Sustainable Clean Energy Project, which started in late 2024 and will conclude hopefully by midsummer of this year. Next slide. It focuses on our parish hall, not the church itself, but the parish hall. It was built about 1915, so it's 110 or 111 years old right now. It has no air conditioning, and the heating is problematical. Next slide. We've been freezing now for most of this winter. It's a fuel oil-based heating system, and fuel oil, as you know, contributes to on-site greenhouse gas emissions, primarily carbon dioxide, probably some other stuff too. It's aged and unreliable. Last year, in 2024, we used 34.5 metric tons of greenhouse gases released. And that cost us almost $15,000 in fuel oil, and it's going to be a lot more this winter. So we really were looking for a way to get around this problem. Next slide. This is what it looks like. This is down in the basement, and as you can see, they're in pretty bad shape. Next slide. Here's what the upper floor of the parish house looks like. There is actually no insulation in the floor and the ceiling. It has single pane windows. When we had an energy audit done, the turnover of air in this building took only 0.7 hours. So it is leaky, it is drafty. It's hot in the summer and it's cold in the winter. As a side note, if you were to only insulate this building or any other building, the payback occurs within 4 years. That's without putting in a new heating and cooling system. So if you have limited funds, you might look at just insulating. Next slide. Your first step, if you want to do a program like this, is to get an energy audit, which is funded by Empower Maryland, and it is free. So in the left panel, you see an infrared shot of they're doing the energy audit, and you can see where there is leakage of air. Next slide. That's just the logo for this Empower Maryland, which is an arm of the Maryland Energy Administration. And you can look it up on the web and find out all about it. Next slide. It is funded, Empower Maryland is funded on your energy bill. Here is mine, gas and electric. It's indicated in green. You can see that I'm paying almost $5 a month toward Empower Maryland. and this goes to fund grants like ours. So it has a pretty large chunk of money available for public use. Next slide. So at the top is what they say about it. Empower Maryland includes free energy audits, weatherization, and energy efficient appliances. And that was wonderful. But in 2024, new legislation substantially expanded Empower Maryland's role. So now it added incentives to switch from fossil fuel powered heating to efficient electric alternatives. It's called the Electrifying Community Building Program. And this year it funds about $6.8 million in grants under this program. The key thing to know is that it covers about 50% of the project costs. So you have to supply the other 50%. I'll talk more about that next. Next slide. It was mentioned earlier that this is not your typical grant program that would eliminate houses of worship. Houses of worship in particular are permitted to join in this program. It also is eligible other community serving buildings that provide services or are used for community activities. So our parish hall does serve that purpose. Next slide. There's a bunch of things that are eligible for these electrification projects and the grants that fund them, including electric heat pumps, either air source, water source, or ground source, and a bunch of other things that you can see here, especially including things like building controls, electric panel and wiring. When you're thinking about a project, you may not recall or realize that you need those sorts of things to make the project fully work. Next slide. And I just have some resources here. Don't want to dwell on them, but they're available and they'll be available in the slides. Next slide. When you submit a grant to Empower Maryland, there's a couple of things I've learned, both from this grant proposal and some other grant proposals I've done. First of all, make sure that you do everything they require of you. Don't leave anything out. Answer every question on the application. I can't tell you how many resumes, job applications leave out things that are asked for. So make sure you do all that. You need to have all your ducks in a row before you apply for a grant. You need 3 estimates for all products and services so that you know what the costs are going to be in advance. Make sure your volunteers are committed to doing the work. There's a lot of work that will be done, needed to be done, that isn't done by your contractors. And it's often done by volunteer labor. So we have a small crew at St. Bartholomew's of a half a dozen old geezers who are retired, who get up there and pull down ceilings and tackle walls and things like that. And you need to have some folks willing to do that. You also need to have your dollar match lined up. I said this is a program that funds 50% of your project. So you need to know where the other half is going to come from and make sure that you tell the grantor where they're coming from. Next slide. So, as I said, we needed a new HVAC system for our parish house. Since we're interested in green solutions, that's what we looked at, and we chose to electrify. Solar panels were not really possible for our situation because our 4 roofs on the campus all face either east or west. Nothing faced south at all. They are very steep, slate roofs, old, that require patching every couple of years. So solar was really not possible for us. I wanted to note that electrification really only just moves generation of greenhouse gases off campus. You have to have a plan, at least in my mind, to alleviate the generation of greenhouse gases. So in our grant request, we promised to buy our electricity generated from wind or solar from Baltimore Gas and Electric. We considered air source heat pumps and ground source heat pumps, that is geothermal. Next slide. We chose geothermal. The reasons are it was rated first in efficiency. It has a 30 to 50 year lifetime for the system versus a 12 to 15 year lifetime for air source heat pumps. And as mentioned before, there is a federal tax rebate available. There's one available for geothermal, and it covers 30% of the system cost. It has a higher initial cost, but that's offset by a longer lifetime in the system. Next slide. So here is our geothermal people drilling the well. They drilled 5 wells. They went 384 feet down into the ground and linked them up with pipes. And it took them about 3 to 4 days to get this done. Next slide.
Upside down.
Okay. I think that's upside down, but at any rate, this is a look up into the ceiling. You can see there's no insulation, and the guys are putting in ductwork right now. Next slide. So our grant was submitted at the end of 2024. It was supposed to be awarded to us in November of 25. They called us up in May and said, congratulations, you got the grant. So it was early. That surprised us. Fortunately, we had all our ducks in a row. So that was good. The total cost of this project is almost $300,000. So we have to cover about half that, $50,000. Also, you should note that Empower Maryland does not provide the dollars up front. They reimburse you only after you've already paid your receipts. Next slide. How did our project work out? Well, we'll let you know. The wells are drilled, the ductwork is going in, the insulation will be done probably in April. And after that, there's a number of other things that have to be done, but we expect to complete this by the summer of 2026. And so I think that's my last slide. So thank you. And if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you so much, Brian and Dave. And I do want to just make mention, Maddie, you have just been a whiz in the chat. Like a lot of the questions have been answered. Grateful to you. But yeah, let's open up the floor. I forgot to mention one. I don't know how I let that slide slip by me. I did think it looked odd, but when I was putting it in, I'm like, oh, maybe that is from yeah, so sorry I had that inside one flipped upside down, but I'm glad you had some visuals as to what it was looking like. And, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention St. Bartholomew's Episcopal Church in Baltimore is a very special green team. They were actually one of our first fully trained green teams. They're on our map, that map that you saw when we did the intro to the program about everyone who's doing this work. So, we're just indebted to you, and it's really just a beautiful story that, you guys started, and I feel like this is a full circle coming back. There's new people in the team. Leah unfortunately couldn't join us this evening, but she's very active. And you guys are featured, as I mentioned when we first started talking, in our invasive plant species removal action kit. So that'll be exciting. We just want to thank you so much for the incredible commitment to environmental stewardship, all the work that you're doing, and thanks for sharing this story with us. There was an interesting comment that Maddie put in during the presentation, and I just want to say that out loud, and then we'll open up the floor and everyone can unmute or if you want to raise your hands. So it says here, and this is interesting, the geothermal tax credit should be 40% since essentially all geothermal systems are produced domestically and therefore qualify for the extra 10% due to domestic content. Is that something that you're aware of, Brian and Dave?
No, we're not aware of that, but we will happily take it and we will
Yep.
investigate it. By the way,
Awesome.
someone mentioned earlier that you have to fill out a bunch of forms to get this tax credit. Our geothermal provider, the guy who drills the wells, is going to work with us on filling out these forms. He's done it before for many of his clients. So that's a source of expertise.
You have quite a robust team there. Yeah, you're in a fortunate situation where you have a lot of folks that can help. And I know a lot of folks can learn from the process that you went through. I'm going to go ahead and just make sure that we're in a gallery view so everyone can see each other. And, forgive me, there's a couple pages here. I'm missing some folks. Reba, thanks so much for joining us. Bonnie, it's always wonderful to see you. Thanks for also putting some information in the chat. Love to always have you. Oh, Leah, you are here. Great. Look, I'm sorry. There's a couple pages that I missed you. Please, feel free to unmute and just say hi to folks because you're such a big part of the team too. Thanks for joining.
Thank you. I want to say that I saw a chat question. Where did we get the other money? And Brian, he got it from the parish vestry, and I'm sorry, Dave. And he, if you're interested, may be able to tell you what it's like to be a property manager for our church.
Did you want to share any of that, Dave, or do we want to move on to the next question?
I'm sorry,
I think it'd be interesting.
did I miss a question? I got interrupted.
It was kind of like a comment, any feedback on being the property manager, like how that might work out.
Well, being a property manager is kind of like a full-time job, especially with old buildings. But many thanks to Maddie for putting me on board with the availability of the state grant. I'm glad we had already established communication, and she picked up on it way before I did. And with Brian's help, who's good at writing grants, we were able to, put together the request and get it in. It was a 6-week process, but we got it done. So we're real happy with what's going on. So at this point,
I'm curious if there's any folks in the room tonight that would be interested if they decide to go that route. Would you be open to having folks reach out to you for maybe
yeah,
feedback or best practices?
yeah, and especially if they want to send me an email or whatever with questions or whatever, we could provide information. Sure.
Okay, so that's great. Yeah, if anyone wants to, and you can just put your information in the chat and we can make sure that we're connecting folks afterwards. And let me just scroll through. Hi, Marcina. It's good to see you too. It's so wonderful to see some wonderful faces here. Reverend Sherry, I got a couple other folks in here. I'm not going to just put anyone on the spot. Thanks for joining us, Les. But yeah, I'm just making sure I'm not missing any hands that are up right now. So I'm scrolling through pages. If your hand is up and I'm not calling you, please feel free to unmute and ask your question while we have a few minutes left with our speakers.
Sarah, hi. I
Hi,
think,
Bonnie. Yeah, go ahead.
hi. I think the question that was asked was, how did you cover the cost up front? Like, I think that was what we were looking for Dave to maybe, so, the vestry had to have the money in the bank account before you could engage in the project. How did you do that? Like, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, okay, I can fill that in. The good news about the way this particular state grant works is that, well, we identified money in our budget in major maintenance funds and some other bequests that folks had given to the church. And so as we expend money on a quarterly basis, we send quarterly reports into the state with validation that we paid the bill, and they actually send back a check to cover what we had already spent. And they're going to do that up to the first 50%, and then the rest is on us. Does
I
that
asked the question, and my question is, where did that money come from? The money to pay the bills before the grant gave you the reimbursed you.
that money came out of our parish budget.
So you had a large, oh wow. Okay.
Well, it was, yeah. But I mean, the expenditure was like a $50,000 bill to drill the wells, which we paid and then got reimbursed for,
Okay.
that kind of thing. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks so much for asking that question, Marianne, and thanks, Bonnie, for helping me get that clarity. Because yeah, that is a very important question, and I'm sure a lot of folks are interested. And for the folks that don't have, that type of green line budget, that's why I'm so happy we had folks like Maddie and Tiffany here to talk about other ways that, you can be able to utilize some other programs and funding that's available. Vaughn, did you have your hand up?
Yes. My question is again with the funding, uh, is it possible, for example, to use a capital campaign to acquire the funds? Would they use that as a source of for the commitments? Because capital campaigns can take 3 to 5 years. So, but you do have commitments that are made. Do we know if they would accept those commitments as potential source of funds?
I I do not believe they will. I think they wanted us to sign pretty much on the dotted line that we had the funds available. They didn't
Okay.
ask specifically to see the funds, but they
Okay.
wanted us to confirm that we had them.
Okay. So, for example, if you had an endowment of some kind that we you could have access to, that would probably serve as that
Yeah,
source of fund. Okay.
right.
Okay.
Right. In our case, we had different funds in the budget. One for some for bequests. People had given money to the church for whatever we needed it for. We had a major maintenance fund, and when we pulled the funds together, we had enough to meet the
Hmm.
$145,000.
Okay.
We
All right.
also were confident because the church owned a property left over from the 1950s that was used by the sexton. The sexton is actually the janitor who takes care of everything around the church, and he had passed away. And our new sexton, we're paying an actual salary rather than including housing as part of compensation. And so this house was available. And we knew the house was going to sell, and we knew that that would be a source of funding that we could always fall back upon. It's a
Hmm.
one-time thing, but we were fortunate to have that.
Okay.
Thanks for sharing that. That
Thank you.
definitely helps where some of that funding came from. Maddie, I see your hand up too. Yeah, please unmute.
Yeah, I was just going to add on to this grant program that St. Bartholomew's went through. I've helped quite a few houses of worship receive that grant. We had probably, I think we're up to like 8 at this point that have gotten the Electrifying Community Buildings grant, and so it's available. They just awarded the awards for 2026, so you would have to wait until next year. The only thing is we're not sure if the grant program will be in place next year because it was a special 2-year allocation of funding by the governor. It's been really popular though, so I would be surprised if they didn't work to try to make it happen. In terms of paying for the rest of the project, I wanted to add that if your project has a payback period, meaning that will the measures, the state energy savings from the measures, will they pay for themselves in less than 18 years? MEA also has a very low interest loan program called the Lawton Loan that we've also had houses of worship apply for. So that can be staffed with the grant to be able to try to pay for the rest of the project if you don't have access to the funds like St. Bartholomew's does. And so anybody who's trying to do any of those types of projects, like please get in touch with me and I'd be happy to talk through kind of what we can do.
Thanks so much for all your knowledge on all the available programs. As you know, each congregation's a case by case, right? Everyone has different circumstances, different situations. So it's just wonderful to know that the folks in the room have a lot of shared knowledge. It's really hard to believe the hour has just pretty much slipped by. And before we close the program, we're going to give one last call for any last remaining questions. And I'm just going to go through the chat again to make sure we addressed everything. Thanks again, Maddie, for really jumping on a lot of those questions. But we always like to ground and close our programs with a prayer or reflection. And if I may ask for your assistance, Rebecca, in sharing our prayer slide. And we'll have that survey. Actually, I will ask folks, especially for those that joined after the hour, to just let us know what you thought about tonight's program. There was a lot of information, so we're always grateful for your feedback. It means a lot to us. This is a wonderful poem to the earth and a wonderful way we would like to end the program with Our Mother, whose name is Earth, hallowed be your ground. Praised be your lands and your skies and your rolling seas. Your gardens thrive, your spirit alive, through woodlands, streams, mountains, and plains everywhere. Grant us this day our needs for tomorrow, and refresh us with your living waters. Forgive us our mistreatment as we would forgive those who cause you harm. Lift us from negligence and deliver us from greed, for yours is the home and the beauty and the life that sustains us. And we would love, respect, and care for you now and ever, ever forward. So thank you so much for joining us this evening. We want to hear what you thought about tonight's program. There's a link to the survey. And thanks so much for spending your Thursday evening with us. We hope that you will join us again for April. I'll send a little event link for that, which is all about native plant giveaways, do's and don'ts. And we'll be doing some congregational highlights from folks that have joined us through the Sacred Grounds program and how your congregation might do a native plant giveaway. So thanks so much, everyone. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much to our just wonderful keynote speakers. Everyone was so knowledgeable, so eloquent. Thanks for connecting with our audience. And we look forward to connecting congregations with you post